What is up, YouTube? My name is Parker. I'm going to be going over Sergey Spivac versus Gane MMA fight this Saturday. So this is my first MMA video. I made a Word document. I took a lot of notes. This probably won't be my format moving on, just because I don't know. It's kind of boring if I read to you off a sheet of paper, but these are my notes. If you want to read along, you can do that. If you want to just minimize your screen and listen while you're doing something, you can go ahead and do that as well. Anyway, we got Fareed Basharat starting off at minus 325 versus Clayton Rodriguez at plus 260. Basharat most recently defeated Damon Blackshear, who has now shown us he was meant to be in the UFC. Damon just fought back-to-back UFC fights, won one of them in the first round against Jose Johnson, and arguably won his other against Bautista. Regardless of your position on that fight, it was highly competitive. My notes for this fight against Damon Blackshear uh, include that Basharat was accurate with his striking. He kept Blackshear guessing with different strikes. He was great grappling he has great grappling overall, but he can be taken down as well. Blackshear did secure a leg triangle at the very end of the first round, but he could not finish it. Prior to that, Basharat fought Alan Begoso, who was 7-1 at the time and now 8-3 on the Dana White Contender Series. Basharat won by a unanimous decision. Begoso is a pretty dangerous fighter. He has a 75% finish rate and has not been finished himself. In this fight, Basharat looked great. He was fighting at range, moving in and out of range effortlessly. Begoso fought with more of a brawler style and was overswinging in this fight, and Basharat took advantage of it by implementing takedowns. Basharat dominated the fight with wrestling and some nice ground and pound. Begoso did land a few nice shots and had some scary submission attempts, but Basharat defended them well. He almost got caught in the exact same leg triangle Blackshear did. He does overthrow punches and close guard sometimes and leaves his arm open to being grabbed. This is a bit worrisome, but overall he controlled the fight and got a decisive victory. Next we've got Clayton Rodriguez. Clayton most recently defeated Shannon Ross, who is now 12-8, and they fought in UFC 284 just recently. Shannon Ross was finished in the first round in both of his UFC fights, and he was also KO'd by Vinicius Salvador in Dana White Contender Series. He was successful at the regional level, but there seems to be a large skill gap between those fights and the UFC. Clayton looked excellent in this fight. Every strike he threw seemed to have significant power. He hurt Ross badly with each strike, and Ross could not recover. He got the TKO in the first round. Prior to that, Clayton fought CJ Vergara, who is now 12-4. Vergara has 3 wins in the UFC, one being Clayton, the other being Daniel Da Silva and Vinicius Salvador. Vergara is a very fun fighter to watch, and he is extremely talented. His 2 UFC losses come from Ode Osborne, 12-6, and 4 of those losses occurring in the UFC, and undefeated Tatsuro Taira. I honestly thought the fight between Clayton and Vergara could go either way. Vergara was taken down and controlled a good bit during this fight. Vergara was swinging a little wildly, and Clayton fought quite technically. He stayed at good range and had a nice movement around the cage. Rodriguez is hittable at times, and he does take bad shots when he's hit. Vergara's capitalized on that, and when he was on top, he accumulated a good bit of control time. Clayton did end up pulling off several reversals when he was taken down. In round 3, both men seemed pretty tired, but they were fighting at an incredible pace. This was an extremely fun, fast-paced fight to watch. I don't hate the decision going to Vergara's favor, but it 100% could have gone to Clayton. Before that, Clayton fought Curatolo, who was 6-1 at the time and now 6-4 on the Dana White Contender Series. He won by a 30-27 unanimous decision. After fighting Clayton, he was knocked out twice in the CFFC. There was a clear side difference in Clayton's favor in this fight. Clayton showed excellent striking. He had very fast, powerful flying knees, head kicks, and Clayton pushed the pace and showed more aggression. Clayton did get taken down again, but he did not let Curatolo have any control time. Clayton fought very well out of the clinch using knees and elbows. He had some beautiful spinning kicks, which could wow the crowd on a bigger stage. Clayton did try to force a guillotine submission and gave up position towards the end of round 3, but this was a clear win for Clayton. My conclusion, Fareed Basharat and Clayton Rodriguez are both high-volume, high-paced fighters with lots of grappling upside. If you play DFS, MMA, you should probably put one of these guys in your lineup, whether it gets finished early or it goes the distance. You will get your value from one of these guys. I think that Clayton is one of the only dogs on this card that could pull off an upset. I do not like the current minus 325 line for Bosharat. However, I do think Bosharat wins this fight. I think that Clayton is extremely dangerous and could pull off an upset. I picture this fight to be a lot of striking and a lot of grappling back and forth. Both men are capable in each of these areas, but I do give the slight edge to Bosharat here. I think this fight goes the distance. My bet here is Bosharat by decision, but I will have a lot of exposure to Clayton, especially in my DraftKings lineup with his wrestling and a high volume striking upside. Next, we got Ange Lusa versus Reese McGee. Ange Lusa's coming in right now at a minus 180 favorite, and Reese McGee is a plus 152. Ange Lusa is 9-3 currently. Ange Lusa's most recent fight was against AJ Fletcher, who was 9-1 at the time and now at 10-2. This fight was back in August of 2022, so it's been a while since he fought. AJ Fletcher got his first win in the UFC against Thimba Garimbo. Thimba Garimbo is pretty talented. This is for sure a notable win. Fletcher's only losses come from Lusa himself and Matthew Simmelsberger, so he's a pretty accomplished fighter. He went 3 full rounds with both of them. We now know Simmelsberger is extremely dangerous and has 5 UFC wins. Basically, the win against Fletcher has some merit. In Lusa's fight with Fletcher, they were mostly kickboxing. Lusa had some damaging strikes which busted Fletcher up, as well as a nice takedown to secure the first round. Fletcher was throwing some nice body kicks, which prompted Lusa to take him down again. Lusa lost control and then went back to their feet. Then Fletcher was landing some powerful strikes. Lusa almost looked out on his feet, and Fletcher shot a takedown. Lusa stopped it. Fletcher emptied the gas tank in the second round, and Lusa took advantage of it in the third round. Lusa landed over 70 significant strikes in the third, ended up on top for the remainder of the fight, and Lusa showed great cardio and adversity. But he did get very hurt at one point, which is worrisome. Lusa seemed to primarily strike, but when he could grapple, he took advantage of it. It was definitely a fun fight and a decisive victory for Lusa. Before that fight, Lusa matched up with Munir Lazez, who was 10-2 at the time and now 11-3. And he lost to Gabriel Bonfim just recently, who was a beast. Lazez is a really tall, lanky guy sitting at 7-1. He had a massive reach advantage over Lusa and used it well. Lazez clearly had a speed advantage. Lusa landed some good strikes, but Lazez had quick counters and combinations which threw Lusa off. He wasn't able to finish any combinations himself because he kept getting hit. Lusa tried to implement his grappling because he was losing the striking exchanges, and he couldn't get him down. Lusa looked better in the third and was outstriking Lazez until the last couple of minutes of the round, and this ended up being a 30-27 unanimous decision for Lazez, and I agree. A lot of Lusa's wins were against nobodies, but he did show he has talent in his recent fights, and he went 3 full rounds with Jack Della Maddalena in the Contender Series. He has a relatively promising future in MMA. Next, we got Reese McGee, Skeletor, 13-4. Reese McGee is 3-0 in his last 3 fights, all of them being TKOs or KOs. These guys were relatively unimpressive, though. His last win was against a 39-year-old and went all the way into the 4th round. Neither of the other two have fought in the UFC. One fought in the Dana White Contender Series and lost. Reese McGee had a tough break in his UFC debut facing Kazmat Kamaev, who needs no description. He is an absolute menace and has taken the UFC by storm. Khamzat picked him up and set him in the corner and just beat him badly until the ref stopped it. I don't hold that against Reese much. It was 3 years ago. He was 24 and against a monster. He also fought Alex Morono, who definitely had the size advantage with height and reach. McGee tended to overswing, and Morono would take advantage of it. McGee would have been better off using his range, jabbing, and kicking. Instead, he wanted to press forward and fight in Moreno's face, which is awkward for him because his arms are so long that he can't accurately punch up close. When they weren't up close, McGee's guard was extremely low and left him susceptible to big overhand rights. Morono managed to get a takedown, and at one point, they put up striking stats in round 2, and Morono was at 80 and McGee at 30. Morono started losing some of the striking exchanges in the third and took it to the ground, but McGee did threaten some submissions off his back, which prompted Morono to let him up. Then McGee somehow got his mouthpiece knocked out, and it landed under his cage, which was like the weirdest thing ever. I mean, they stopped the fight for like 5 minutes, and you'd think Reese would have used that time to come and rest, but uh, nah. I mean, he came out and Morono just went out and took him down and landed some nasty ground and pound. I mean, it was yeah, it was pretty ridiculous. Um, at first, I was worried about the height and range advantage that McGee has over Lusa because Lusa did not fare well against Lazez. But after watching McGee's fights, he really doesn't use it as much as he should, and he is a lot slower than Lazez. Lusa just couldn't accurately close the distance with Lazez because he was so fast and accurate. McGee just isn't as accurate and doesn't throw enough volume to keep Lusa at bay like Lazez did. I think Lusa is way more powerful and manages to close the distance and fight dirty up close, as well as working a couple takedowns to secure some rounds. This would be the key to victory for Lusa, and I think Lusa at minus 180 is a decent bet, and I have it on a couple parlays and a straight bet as well. A lot of people think this fight goes under 2.5 rounds at plus 120, but I'm not so sure of that. I could see it going the distance. My pick here is Ange Lusa with the up close striking advantage. Next, we got a boring one. Jocelyn Edwards minus 115 versus Nora Cornoa. I don't like. I don't really know how to pronounce these French names. Let's just call her Nora at minus 105. So Jocelyn Edwards, she's a capable striker with moderate judo and BJJ skills. She primarily uses kicks to her advantage. She has a unique way of sliding into kicks and rolling her hips when she does so. Nonetheless, it is relatively effective. She is pretty big for a 135, and she has missed weight in her last few UFC fights by a couple pounds. She's probably one of my least favorite UFC fighters out there right now, which is not a real stat, but I just wanted to point that out. Her her last fight was against Lucy Pudilova, 14-7 at the time. Pudilova has one win in the UFC, and it should have been two because she beat the brakes off of Jocelyn Edwards. And one of the worst robberies I've ever seen. In that fight, Edwards had some nice leg kicks and combinations. Edwards did a good job moving in and out of range until Pudilova caught her over swinging and secured a takedown. Pudilova controlled her, landed ground and pound for 3 minutes, and in the final minute of the first round, Edwards turned into Pudilova and managed to reverse her momentarily and landed a couple punches. But Pudilova got up, separated herself, and Edwards tried a judo trip but did not get it. During round two, Edwards seemed to be winning the striking exchange on their feet, and then Pudilova got an easy takedown. Pudilova landed several big elbows from side control, which forced Edwards to give up her back. Pudilova almost secured a choke, but Edwards turned out to avoid the choke and gave up full mount. There were even more elbows from Pudilova to end the round. In the third round, there was no urgencies from either fighter. Striking was pretty even. The judges gave Edwards the split decision, even though she got her ass handed to her the first 2 rounds. Prior to the fight with Pudilova, Edwards fought Jeon Kim, and who was 9-7, and she was 0-5 in her last five. Kim is a relatively accomplished fighter with 9 UFC fights, though, only 3 of which were wins. I'm going to save you the play-by-play on this fight because it was extraordinarily hard to watch. Ultimately, Edwards had better kickboxing and landed more volume. She probably lost the second round. Then in round two, or in round three, she then she scores a takedown and rides it out for a boring win. Even this win was actually a split decision, so at least one of the judges thought Kim won. Other than that, Edwards beat Ramona Pascual, who has lost all 3 of her UFC fights. Uh, she lost to Jessica Rose Clark, who was 4-5 in the UFC, and lost to Carol Rosa, who is probably the best fighter she has ever faced. All right, moving on to Nora. Nora's a somewhat unknown fighter. She's 6-1. She's a bit older at 33, with her first professional fight being in 2021. It's a bit odd to start your professional fighting career at 31, but she seems to be doing well. None of her wins were against super high quality opponents, but all of her wins have been finishes. And to be honest, she looked to be an extremely dangerous jiu-jitsu practitioner and had great striking ability. Her last win was due to an injury. Her opponent claimed she hurt her knee, but she stopped fighting directly after she took a kick to the midsection. In that fight, she was getting hit quite a lot, and some people think she was actually losing the fight up until then, and I agree to an extent. Others were beautiful KO finishes. She's very deceptive. She likes to throw. She likes to be passive and let people go into clinch with her, and then when they go for a takedown, she somehow ends up on top. And then she's great at getting hooks in, getting sweeps, and some of her finishes are from taking her opponent's backs and flattening them out on the ground and laying ground and pound. She is great at leg triangles and chokes. I might be overhyping her and making Joe Celine sound bad, but I think she's actually really great. Her age is concerning with the skill of her opponents. Anyone can look good against nobodies. Her only loss is to Jacqueline Cavalcanti, who is also fighting on this card, which is kind of funny to be honest. Who's a massive favorite. Um, anyway, my conclusion: I'm not betting either money line on this fight. The judging with Jocelyn Edwards is too inconsistent. If it goes to a decision, which it probably will, Edwards may look more favorable to the judges for some reason, since that's how it's looked in the past. I honestly don't even like betting that this will go the distance because Nora could win this fight inside the distance. I'm 90% Edwards will not finish the fight inside the distance, so I do really like the inside the distance or no action bet here. I put a few bucks on Cornell by submission in each round at over plus 1,000 each. I think that Jocelyn will have the advantage on the feet, but Cornell's jiu-jitsu will steal the show if it hits the ground. Jocelyn doesn't go for many takedowns until the end of the round or if she's tired. Overall, this fight's really sketchy. If I had absolutely choose who would be winning, it would be Edwards by decision. It's hard to overlook the clear size difference and experience on Edwards' side, though. I will be rooting for Nora in this fight. We got Zara Farn at plus 285 versus Jacqueline Cavalcanti at minus 375. We just talked about her. Well, Cavalcanti, yeah. Zara Farn is 0-3 in the UFC. She's 36. I guess I don't. I've seen a bunch of different ages for her. I've seen it up to 40. So I like yeah. I don't know. I don't know how old she is, but she's older. 36 is old to be in the UFC. To be honest, I'm 28 and I feel like shit. Like there's no way I'd step in a cage right now. Anyway, it seems this will be her last fight in the UFC unless they have another newcomer to build up. She was finished in the first round, and two of her UFC losses, and then lost a unanimous decision to Josiane Nunes. There really isn't much for me to go over with her. She normally fights at 145 and will be going down to 135 for this matchup. That will either greatly benefit her or hurt her badly. If I had to guess, it would hurt her. Being 36 and cutting that much weight will not fare well for her, and her last win was in 2017. So moving on to Jacqueline Cavalcanti, she's relatively inexperienced. She's 5-1, so it's her first fight in the UFC. Only 6 professional fights so far, but she's in a good position to win. She's fighting at her normal weight class and has a 10-year difference from Farn on her side. Cavalcanti most recently fought Croden. Cavalcanti was the aggressor. Landed lots of leg kicks and some decent jabs. She managed to string together some great combinations and get 2 knockdowns in round 1, which is pretty impressive for somebody who's 135 pounds. She did a good job at defending takedowns and maintaining her striking range. Conversely, several strikes did get past her guard, mostly jabs. She took most of the hits well and ended rounds by pushing the pace, though. As I said before, Cavalcanti is in a great spot to win her UFC debut. I honestly think that minus 375 is way too much to confidently lay money on. I mean, everything is pointing towards Cavalcanti to win, but she really hasn't beaten anybody that great, so it's pretty risky. I think the odds should be like 170 here, minus 170. People may think I'm crazy for that, but women's MMA is just all over the place. And I think Zarin could land some decent shots on her and seal a round or two. See this fight being very low volume, hardly any grappling. If Zarin lands a couple power punches, I could see it swaying the judges. Weird things have happened. I picked Cavalcanti because I have to. I think that Zarin, by decision, may be an extremely sneaky bet, though, but don't put too much money on it. Next, we got Taylor Lapoulis versus what was his name? Lofgren. I can't remember his first name. That's annoying. Anyway, Lapoulis is coming in at minus 165 and Lofgren at plus 135. It's like Cowlin or something. I don't know. It's something like that. He's Irish. It's an interesting name. Anyway, Taylor Lupulis is an experienced fighter. He has been a professional fighter for 11 years. He is 5-0 in his last 5 fights and has never been finished. He fought in the UFC 4 times between 2015 and 2017 and was 3-1 in the UFC. I have no idea why he wasn't invited back. Maybe he was too boring, or I have no idea. Like 3-1 is a good record. Like they have people in 4 fight skids still in the UFC. All right, his last win was over Demarte Pena, who was undefeated at 13-0, and he is now 14-1. In this fight, he uses kickboxing to push the pace. He pressured Pena into the cage, and when Pena pushed back, he countered well. He hurt Pena badly with the knee to the body, which made Pena shoot a low single, and Lapoulis defended it well. And on the break, he landed some nasty elbows for a decisive KO victory. In the fight prior to that, 2 years ago, he fought a 36-year-old who's now 38, Wilson Rice, with a record of 24-11. Rice fought in the UFC between 2013 and 2019. His losses coming from Alexandre Pantoja, John Moraga, and Henry Cejudo, Jesus Christ, and Demetrius Johnson. All high quality fighters. During this bout, Lapoulis kept the fight on the feet, showed nice takedown defense, as well as securing a knockdown. Lapoulis did give up his back and was threatened by a choke, but managed to escape. Lapoulis continued to land knees to the body and secured another knockdown. Race tried again for a submission and failed. In the last round, Race did secure a takedown and held Lapoulis for the majority of the round. This resulted in a unanimous decision with 230-27 scores and a 29-28 score. A decent win against a big name, but beating a 36-year-old by decision doesn't really impress me much. In his UFC loss, he won the first round, hurt Perez in the second, and then tried a guillotine and got exposed. His ground game was basically non existent. He had futile attempts at submissions. In the third, he looked pretty gassed out and allowed himself to be taken down twice. In his most recent loss, Lapoulis got clinched and taken down over and over. In the first couple rounds, he was able to get up quickly, but as the rounds went on, he remained on his back longer and longer. He did threaten his jiu-jitsu some, but he was not successful. Sorry for some of this. First was spelled wrong, but whatever. It's all good. Yeah, overall, he is a very talented striker, has good takedown defense, and does know jiu-jitsu, but he does not do well against wrestlers. At least in my opinion, he doesn't. All right, we got Cowlin Lofgren. He's he's a funny looking dude, man. Cowlin Lofgren is undefeated with his last 4 fights being in Cage Warriors, which is one of the better European fighting leagues. He's primarily a wrestler and fights in a low stance with a high guard. He's the epitome of the fighting Irish mascot. Like, dude, it's like straight up. I don't know. I like him, dude. Anyway, his last win was over Dylan Hazan, who was 9-0 before the loss. In that fight, Lofgren utilized his boxing and stopped every takedown attempt, kept the fight on the feet, and KO'd Hazan. The fight prior to that was against Luke Shanks, who was 10-3 at the time. Lofgren was pressuring Shanks and overthrew his punches and got taken down briefly. He was up immediately and didn't take too kindly to the takedown, so he cured one of his own in a big fashion. He tends to slam people. Like, he gets pretty nice looking takedowns that I don't know. I appreciate as a wrestler myself. Then he took Shanks back, figure forward his body, and stayed there the remainder of the round, looking for chokes and getting ground and pound. Lofgren pushed the pace in the second round with the same kind of thing, kickboxing, and secured a takedown off Shanks' failed guillotine attempt. Lofgren took his back and laid ground pound until the ref stopped it. Against Festus Ahurlu, 5-0 at the time, he did the same thing, pressured Ahurlu with his aggressive striking. Sorry, these names are like really terrible. Like, and I don't like, nobody knows who they are. So I mean, I'm trying here, but I mean, hey, they seem to be good fighters, like for where they are. Um, got a bit. So he got Horlu into the cage, got some nice takedowns. The only criticism I have is that sometimes he doesn't finish his takedowns soon enough and needs some shots in on the way. Lawfren beautifully managed to take his back and lock that body triangle in. I think that is highly underutilized in the UFC. Ahorlu managed to stay alive until the third round, but it was more of the same: big takedowns, heavy ground pound, and the fight got stopped. My conclusion: this one's pretty cut and dry to me. Lapulus is not the best wrestler, and Lawfren looks overly dominant. If Lawfren looks like he did in Cage Warriors in this fight, he will definitely win. Also, in the future, he will be an absolute menace. I may be biased, but I think wrestling is the most important thing in the UFC. If you can control somebody and take somebody's back for the majority of the round, how are you not winning the fight? I think this will be a really fun fight to watch. I see Lofren pressuring a lot, and trust me, he will take some hits because Lapalus is extremely powerful, but I see him withstanding them, getting takedown after takedown. Lapalus will work his way back up the first couple times, probably, but he will get worn down and lose his power and be less dangerous as he tires out. Maybe a TKO from Lofren late in the second or third round. That's how I see it. On the other hand, this will be Lofren's first true test. Lapalus is extremely experienced, but I see the flaws in his fighting style, and he has not changed his ground game much. I mean, I've watched a lot of his tape, and he looks pretty much the exact same. I put 2 units on Lofren at plus 140. We got Morgan Shariad. I don't know how to pronounce it. it's Morgan. It's actually Morgan. Morgan. It's French. Um, yeah. Anyway, I'm gonna call him Morgan because that's his name. Minus 325 versus Manolo Zucchini. His name is actually Zucchini. I'm gonna call him Zucchini because that shit's funny. Anyway, plus 260 for Zucchini. Uh, Morgan Charrier. I can't, I can't do it serious. Has mainly fought in the Cage Warriors. He is 3-0 in his last 3 fights. 2 were finishes. His last loss was in 2021 to Paul Hughes, who was 9-1. His only loss coming from Jordan Vucinic. Vucinic. Jair lost to Jordan Vucinic as well. That was his only other loss. Uh, and he was 11-2. So these guys are no slouches. Like, they have good records. Yeah. I mean, the competition there is decent. Like, and Zucchini is also from that same area and kind of fights like he fights in like the Italian league over there. So it's kind of like all the same playing field, roughly. I mean, like 11-2, 9-1. Like, I don't care what league you're in or whatever. Like, those are good records. Like, I don't know. It's pretty impressive. Okay. All right. Against Diego Silva, I think his last fight. Diego Silva was 15-8, but Morgan had efficient jabs and low kicks. Morgan pushed the pace and dropped Silva with a powerful leg kick. Morgan ended up on top. I forgot to call him Morgan. Anyway, Silva tried for some submissions, but Morgan, then I did it. Whatever. I'm just gonna call him Morgan. Showed good defense and took Silva's back and almost sank a rear naked choke in. When the fight was on the feet, Morgan landed nice knees to the body and he showed great takedown defense. Morgan got into a firefight and dropped Silva and nearly finished him. Morgan was the clear aggressor. Whenever Silva tried to push back, Morgan had a quick counterattack. Silva continued to go for takedowns and was unsuccessful. Morgan landed a takedown of his own and they scrambled. Morgan ended up hurting Silva. Silva was exhausted and all he could do was cover up. He got the TKO. Very dominant performance by Morgan. Part of that, Morgan fought Pedro Souza, who was 17-5 over there. He gave up an early takedown and Souza took his back, but Morgan managed to get his arm under one of the hooks and slowly shook Souza off his back. He was like in serious trouble. But he ended up with a leg triangle and nearly grabbed an armbar. Souza did. Once Morgan finally got free and ended up on top, he had some of the nastiest ground and pound someone could do. He opened up Souza badly, not sure if he had a concussion or if the cut was so bad, like But yeah, the doctor stopped it between rounds. He looked okay to me, but I don't know. I mean, maybe in those like lesser leagues, like they let less shit fly because they don't get paid as much. Like it's like not worth it. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. They're probably getting like what, like $1,000, $2,000 a fight or something. At least in the UFC, they're getting paid. Have a shot to make more money. Like I'd be pissed either way, though. I guess if a doctor stopped it. Okay. Yeah. So Morgan showed great resilience, defense, and an extremely powerful offense with excellent striking ability. When he fought Daniel Bazant at 7-5, Morgan dominated striking, landed multiple takedowns. He did eat some shots trying to finish takedowns, but he always landed them. Bazant showed sparks throughout the fight with some reversals and head kicks of his own. He did manage to hurt Morgan a few times, and had Morgan in some dangerous spots. But it was clear Morgan was the dominant wrestler and fighter overall. He won the decision. Moving on to Zucchini, my boy. Um, he was 11-3. He's a handsome man and a decent fighter on the regional scene. Sorry if I find myself funny sometimes, but I'm pretty funny. His last three fights were in Venator FC 11. So, yeah, that's an extremely small league in Italy. Honestly, I'd never heard of it. And, yeah, I don't see too many Italian fighters in the UFC. It's been a while. Maybe you'll see like one every now and again, but yeah, it's been a while. He fought. His last fight was a Bubakar Tonkora. He was 9-5. Zucchini had solid striking, attempted a takedown but didn't finish it. He landed several decent high kicks and body kicks, which set up a nice overhand right. Zucchini is not that fast and seemed to telegraph his shots. It was a close first round. Then in the second round, Zucchini lands a flush flying knee and gets the KO early. It was actually pretty sick. Um, yeah. All right. So the fight previous to that was against Kompasath. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce it, but whatever. 12-12. He's got some experience at least. In the fight, Zucchini looked extremely technical, and by technical I mean slow, at least compared to Morgan. I mean, like he was accurate, but pretty slow. You know what I mean? He stood still, almost lulled Souk to sleep, and when he didn't expect it, he landed a head kick. It was very weird. It was like I've never seen anybody fight like that, but it was kind of interesting. Yeah. So not much volume, but every strike that hit hurt Souk. It was a very easy knockout for him. It looked impressive, but I mean, like, I don't know who these guys are. Uh, yeah, I mean, most of his fights or finishes, like, he seems to be a pretty decent fighter. Like, it should be, like, this fight should be pretty interesting overall. All right, so I watched a couple more fights where he lost to see where his weaknesses are, and here are some notes for those fights. I don't have that many, but uh, yeah, he's a great technical striker, but he's prone to being taken down. When he's taken down continuously, his cardio greatly diminishes. It seems to be a theme for a lot of strikers. Morgan is more elusive and explosive. Yeah, my conclusion is more elusive and explosive. His wrestling is pretty amazing, and he can keep up the pace for several rounds. Zucchini's weakness is wrestling and cardio, so it's kind of the same thing as Lofren and uh, Lapulus. Same kind of ordeal. His striking is very lethal. He does have first round knockout potential, but and he is a mostly stationary fighter. But when he throws kicks and punches, they come fast. It's an awkward style, but it works against low tier opponents. From what I've seen, he gets up quick after the first few takedowns, but if you're relentless at getting him down, he tends to gas out, then does the bare minimum to stay alive, and becomes way less dangerous on the feet. With all that being said, I like Morgan to get a ton of takedowns and get the knockout with ground and pound in the second round. I don't know. I'm just saying the second round, but it could happen anytime. This dude's a freaking monster. Like honestly, like I mean, Zucchini's like good, man. Like he's good, but Morgan just impressed me. He wowed me. Yeah, if you want to bet inside the distance, go for it. I think this fight has some of the highest probability to finish early on in the card. Like Definitely. Yeah, one of the highest. I'd say probably the second most. Uh, yeah. The only reason Zucchini wasn't finished against Karamutulo, which was yeah, like one of his recent fights, was because he wasn't very busy on top after he got the takedowns. So I mean, like I see Morgan, like he got taken down and but he kind of just stalled out. Like he was trying to win just by laying there, and a lot of fighters do that, and it's boring. But yeah, that's not going to get you the win. You got to go for the ground pound, man. Like get him out of there. I mean, if the other dude's tired, like you can just hit him with little punches, and the ref will call it. If Morgan can get him in the same position that Koramatulo got him in, Morgan will put together powerful ground pound for a TKO. Should be an easy win for Morgan, in my opinion, unless he gets caught with like some crazy kick or punch or something. Um, but I don't see it happening. And if he does, bro, he's got a chin. Like, Buddy's a beast. I don't know. I mean, that's just yeah. All right, William Gomi versus Giannis Gamori. So Gomi coming in at minus 225, Gamori at plus 185. This everybody got moved around on this card. Yeah, Gomi was gonna fight Lucas Almeida. Gamori was gonna fight Lawfren. I don't understand the way they did it. Like they had one guy not come, or like I don't know, he had an injury or like Lucas Almeida did. So they didn't fill him in with somebody. They took somebody and then like they took another fight and then filled that guy with that fight and then they took the guy from that fight to switch this fight. It's stupid. Like I don't understand why they won't just take one guy and pair him with Gomi. Like maybe nobody would take the fight with Go. Like maybe the guy was like, I'll fight so and so, but not the other guy. I don't know. And then they just did it. So, but it's kind of like it's annoying for everyone involved. Anyway, worked out for Gomi. I mean, he's now an even bigger favorite. Lucas Almeida was kind of he looked nice to be honest. Anyway, William Gomi is a kickboxer that utilizes grappling when he needs to win rounds. He has two UFC wins. I need to proofread this. Anyway, his last fight was against Francis Marshall, who was 7-2, who was no slouch. In that fight, Gomi fought relatively passively, using his elusiveness to go around the cage and strike from a distance and take advantage of Marshall's aggressiveness. Gomi landed a lot of kicks to all parts of Marshall's body. He showed a good takedown defense. He won the first two rounds and lost the third, where Marshall was the aggressor. Marshall landed strikes and was getting takedowns of his own, and ultimately the fight was a split decision in Gomi's favor. The fight prior to that, Gomi fought Aarons. Both were lanky strikers with quick, good movement and fast spinning kicks. Aaron's went for a judo throw. Gomi changed levels and got an easy takedown. Aaron's went into close guard up against the fence, and Gomi had some solid control time. And then Aaron's managed to get up, but ate some strikes to end the first round. Both men had even striking to start round two, like they were looking pretty even. But Gomi got hit with a big right and a subsequent knee. He was hurt bad. Gomi went for a takedown off of being hurt. And both men had some pretty great scrambling, wrestling. Gomi looked pretty fresh on his feet late in the rounds. His cardio was holding up. Both were throwing massive strikes. Gomi initiated clinch, got him up to the cage, and landed another big takedown. Aaron's conceded to the bottom position, but he managed to get a leg triangle at the very end of the round, and Gomi rolled through and slowly started to pop out. It was a close fight and a great fight. It was super fun to watch. Against Jose Marco Lima Santiago Jr., the longest name I've ever read. He was 11-7, and Gomi uh, was excellent with his striking, which allowed him to close the distance and initiate the clinch. He had lots of control time and was successful at taking the back, and he ended the fight in the third round with a KO. All right, breaking down Yanni Gamori. He was 12-1. Honestly, Yeah, like I didn't have much tape on him, but I'll let you know what I found. And yeah, Yanni Gamori. Is it Giannis or like, whatever? I don't even care. He'll probably never be in the UFC again. All right. Yeah, he's never fought in the UFC, but he has been undefeated in his last 9 bouts, which is like relatively impressive. His last 3 fights were in Brave CF, Brave cage fighting. Honestly, I didn't even know they were still doing that. His last 3 fights were against Mimosh Raza at 10-6, Bear Steppen at 11-6, and Vladislav Novitsky at 10-6. I don't know why they're all 10-6. Like but they are whatever. He KO'd Mamouche. I'm getting like weird because I'm getting tired right now. He KO'd Mamouche and Bear Steppen in the second round of each fight. He won. He won against Nowitzki by split decision. I don't know. I can't keep a straight face right now. I couldn't find too much tape on Giannis. As I stated earlier, he fights pretty similarly to Gomi. He stays at range and uses kicks to open up more strikes. He looks much smaller than Gomi and stands very straight up, kind of like Alex Pereira, like a kickboxing stance. I saw that he scores takedowns from the clinch in some of his fights, so he does know how to grapple, at least somewhat. To be honest, his knockout against Raza was kind of fucked up. He basically had him pinned against the fence and leaned over and like set him up. Like it was bad. Like his hands were on the ground like this, and like as soon as his hands got off the ground, boom! Like it was, it was pretty bad, man. Yeah, I don't know. Not sure if it would have been legal in the UFC, but hey, protect yourself at all times. Yeah, that was something. It was nasty, dude. I mean, shit. If anybody gets hit with that knee, they're out. My conclusion. All right. So I was on Go Me when he was facing Lucas Almeida, and Almeida makes Gamori look like child's play. Um, it's funny though, cause like he's 12-1, like, but like I'm saying, like the competition over there is just not good, bro. Like these up and comers, like these guys that they're giving UFC debuts to, like they look great on paper, bro. Like it's like China. Like everybody in China is fucking 30-0, 31. Everybody's a champion of wherever. Like that's just what they do, man. They get these guys who have good records, like. But over there, it's the guys who are 12-1 can't even beat the guys who are like have a 500 record in the UFC. Maybe I'm wrong, man. Like, but I think he's gonna get fucked up, bro. Like, yeah. I think Gomi's gonna fuck this guy up. That's my professional opinion. All right. Uh yeah, so unless Gomi gets caught with some crazy knee, like he hit what was his name with? Raza. Yeah. Then Gomi's gonna win. I mean he's got a punch chance. Gomi's bigger, faster, more experienced, and his experience is against better fighters. And he's better at grappling from what I've seen. I like Gomi at -225, and he could be a parlay piece if that's how you look at him. I think he's a good play. All right, give me 1 second. All right, I need some nicotine. Sorry, I was talking for quite some time. All right, here we go. My favorite fight of the matchup. Just kidding. This is like my second favorite one. Volkan Ozdemir at -180 versus Bogdan Guskov. This is my favorite one to bet on. +150. I don't even have anything on either one of these guys under their names. I'm just gonna get to the conclusion. Pretty cut and dry. Gonna get right to the conclusion here. This is my most confident pick on the card. I don't want to bore you with the details for this one. Feel as though I don't need to justify this pick by giving examples. Just trust me here. My boy Vulcan has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 UFC fights. He is 6-6 in the UFC, which is not that great, but I mean, well, it's better than most people. I mean, 12 fights in the UFC is insane. Uh, anyway, he hasn't beaten anybody insanely talented recently, but by no means does that mean he's washed. I'll take Ozdemir on his worst day over Bogdan. I would take Ozdemir at minus 500, and I'm not even joking. I have like 5 units on him. Ozdemir is a real killer. He has great chin, and power. I mean, maybe not against the other top 10 top ranked contenders in the world. But this dude Bogdan, come on, bro. Really? I just typed all this out. Like, really? 14-2 against who? His last fight, sure, first round TKO against a dude who's 41. Not impressed. The fight before that guy normally fights at 185, and he bumped to 205 to take that fight. And he was 4-2 with one of his wins coming from disqualification. 6 professional fights total, a weight class up from where he normally fights at. I'm not impressed. Next, the dude is 7-4-1. 0-3 in his last three. 3 of his wins coming from the Arabic Ultimate Fighting Championship. What is that you're asking? I'm asking the same thing. Never heard of it. At this point, I'm just throwing out stupid stats that you'll never use in your life other than Saturday. Because you will never hear of these guys again, other than Ozdemir. Look, does Goose Cobb have power? Bro, I'm getting like mad silly right now. Okay. Yeah, sure he does. But does he have technique? No. What about his defense? Does he have a chin? No. And no. He got dropped in the first round by a jab in his last loss. My note was literally glass jaw. I see a first round KO here for Ozdemir unless he wants to play with his food and lay on top of him and ride out the decision. If Ozdemir loses, this will be my first and last YouTube video. I forgot I wrote that. Put all your money on Ozdemir. Have him in your DraftKings GPP lineups. If you want insurance, go ahead and pick the other guy in a couple. But this is my most confident pick on the card by far. Next, we got Manon Fiorot versus Rose Namajunas. So Fiorot coming in at minus 210 versus Namajunas at plus 170. I'm going to the conclusion here again, guys. I'm doing the exact same thing. My conclusion is don't bet on this fight. Don't bet on this fight, and don't bet on this fight. Unless you're well versed in both these fighters and are confident. I don't know what the deal with Namajunas is. She had the most boring title fight with Carla Esparza and lost a weird split decision. They went 5 rounds, and if I recall correctly, Namajunas landed 38 strikes. 38, you say? You must mean significant strikes. No, regular strikes. They literally just walked in circles for 25 minutes as everyone in the audience was stunned in disbelief. They thought it was going to be a nice fight. It was not. I thought it was going to be a nice fight too because it was a title fight. Anyway, that was a year and a half ago. What has she done since? Who knows, man? I don't. The even more confusing thing about this is that she beat Zhang Wei Li not once, but twice. And Zhang is not only my favorite female fighter right now. Thank you for that 190 fantasy point fight 2 weeks ago. But she is the defending champion. I watched tape on Namajunas and Fiorot, and I wanted to slap myself. Fiorot was 5-0 in the UFC, but her last few fights were some of the most boring decision victories ever. Fiorot is getting older, and I think she's reaching her expiration date soon, and Namajunas is just a big question mark. I couldn't tell you who wins this, and personally, I truly don't care. But if you must have my pick, I pick Fiorot. She is French. She will have the home crowd. This will likely go to decision, and they are fighting at 125, which is not Namajunas' normal weight. I'm going with the home crowd, the reach advantage, height advantage, and size advantage. I wouldn't be shocked if Namajunas pulled off an upset, though, because she was a beast several years ago. I have 10% exposure to Namajunas in DraftKings because there's not too many great underdogs. Here we go. The true main event. We got Benoit Saint Denis minus 155 versus Thiago Moises at plus 130. All right, this is a fight everyone's tuning in to see. Benoit Saint Denis is my favorite fucking fighter on the planet right now, and I'm not biased at all, I promise. He makes me proud to call myself French. My mom's French. She was born in France. I don't speak French. I know a couple phrases, but that's it. But I do like using, um, yeah, my ethnicity when I can say I'm French. Anyway, uh, dude, bro, I'm sorry. This is cringe. This is getting cringe. All right. Um, Benoit Saint Denis, dude's an absolute unit. I'm sure most of you know he was in the Special Operations Command, which is the equivalent of U.S. Special Forces in France. This dude has more heart than I've ever seen, and his only loss against Elizu Zaleski dos Santos, we got some crazy names here. A couple years back, he was getting absolutely thrashed. The announcers were crying about how they need to stop the fight over and over again. The ref said, nah, and he stayed in it. Should they have stopped the fight? Probably, but on that day, he showed everybody he's tough as nails, and he was going to be a contender. He has been 3-0 since that fight. His last fight was a swift victory against Ismail Bonfim, who was 19-4. He's pretty freaking good, man. Um, he won with a face crank, and I'm not sure if I've ever seen that before, but he was the underdog and went out and took him down and pressured nonstop. Part of that, he KO'd Miranda 16 seconds into the second round. Benoit was taken down, but reversed it as fast as it happened. Benoit ate a couple punches, but landed a spinning back fist. He got on top. Miranda tried some submissions, and as soon as Benoit had the opportunity, he rained down powerful punches. Miranda barely managed to get out after an armbar attempt. Then, boom, got dropped. Benoit was hammering on him, and Miranda got saved by the bell. The ref honestly should have stopped it there because at the start of the second, Miranda was still out of sorts, and Benoit made light work of him. He destroyed him in those 16 seconds. Um, Fight before that, he fought Nicholas Stolze, who was 12-6 currently. Benoit went for a takedown, but ate a knee on the way in. Still finished the takedown, beast. Benoit basically just beats the fuck out of him, takes him down over and over, and finally takes his back and chokes him out. On to Thiago Moises. This dude's an animal as well. He's a fun fighter to watch. He has excellent grappling and jiu-jitsu. He beat Melk Costa in his last fight, who is 12-6 now. And he most recently, and funnily enough, he did it by a face crank. Imagine that. In this fight, he showed excellent elusiveness and took to grappling right away. He got some control time in the clinch and secured a nice takedown. He landed some nice ground and pound. Sorry, everything's nice in this little paragraph, as well as some knees to the body. Dude was hitting some knees to the body while he was on the ground. Relentless. Melk manages to get up at the end of round one, and Moises showed some striking prowess at the bell. Moises got another easy takedown to start round two. Melk popped up. Costa was winning the striking exchanges, so Moises level changed and landed a perfect double leg takedown. Started landing elbows, which cut Melk open, and Costa had to give up his back, and Moises secures the face crank to win in the second round. Prior to that, he fought Christos Giagos, who was 20-10, an experienced UFC vet. Moises opened up with a big 1-2, set up a takedown. He did get cut on the way in and was bleeding quite a bit. Nonetheless, he locked up a quick body triangle and he alternated beautifully from striking and looking for a choke. And he did sink the choke and get the tap in the first round. In his most recent loss against Joel Alvarez, who was 20-3, they were both throwing extremely heavy. Moises showed great lateral movement, but Alvarez kept closing the distance and landed a big knee and some elbows. He was getting beat badly before the ref stopped it in the first round. That was about 3 minutes in. My conclusion, this is going to be a goddamn war. It's going to be an awesome fight. Both men are extremely dangerous. Sorry, I was doing a keyword search on Benoit, and I totally didn't even realize that. All right. Yeah, Benoit opened up as the underdog on Bet Online, but has now surged to a pretty hefty favorite. I bet on Benoit pretty early, put a unit on him for plus money, and then I put another unit on him at minus 125. He's now up to minus 155. I definitely don't think that bet is a sure thing. I'm glad I bet the odds early because Moises is extremely dangerous himself. Overall, Benoit is a dog. I do not see him getting KO'd. If Moises wins, it'll be from a wild submission. Sometimes Benoit leaves his neck out when he shoots and is overly aggressive, which puts him in a bad spot for submissions. That being said, Benoit has never been submitted and has shown with each UFC appearance he is getting better and better. I believe that Benoit could easily be the next UFC champ if he continues growing and getting better. He is so fun to watch. I like the over 1.5 here, but my prediction is that Benoit gets the KO at some point. If it does not go to a decision, the French crowd may have, or wait, sorry, if it does go to decision, the French crowd may have some sway over the judges' decisions. That goes for every fight. Um, yeah, the crowd, like, yeah, I mean, I'll explain it in the paragraph here. Bro, like, I'm getting tired. All right. Sometimes when the crowd goes, ooh, dude, what the fuck is wrong with me? Why did I write this like that? Yeah, next time I'm definitely gonna just like talk on my own, and not read because it's corny, bro. But I wrote all this bullshit, and like to be honest, like I don't have the time to make graphics right now. And yeah, you get what you get, and my picks are good, so suck it. I'm just kidding. Please like the video, subscribe, comment, whatever. Do your thing. Anyway, yeah, the crowd. Sometimes, like when the crowd like cheers for people, you get what I'm saying. Like it may sway the judges. It literally is psychological. Like they do it in the Ultimate Fighter as well. Coaches are screaming ridiculously like when their fighters aren't really doing anything, but like it does like make an impact like when you are judging. Like I'm a bodybuilder and like my friends bodybuild. Like we scream for each other's numbers as loud as we can because like it makes the judges look at you, bro. Like it 100% does. Like it yeah, it makes you stand out. Like they're gonna look at you more. Um, they know people like you, so like they kind of want to like please the crowd too. Like the judges, like they don't want to piss off an entire stadium full of people that thought somebody was winning the fight. Like at least it's how I mean that's what psychology says, bro. Anyway, moving on to the main event, the real main event. Um, we got Cyril Gane at minus 175 versus Sergey Spivac, and he is at plus 145. So yeah, writing this side, um, yeah, I'll just we'll get into that. So yeah, Cyril Gane, 33, 11 and 2. I really like the dude. He's jacked AF. He's a good striker, and he's French. I knew 2 out of those 3 statements don't matter at all, but whatever. His last loss was to John Jones, who is 27 and 1. Yeah, the DQ, I guess, is a loss. But that's actually insane, dude. Like 27 and like and honestly it probably should have been 28 now. Like that's insane. He's a goat. Anyway, something was really weird and off about that fight though. I just have a hard time believing that Jones could so easily sink that guillotine in and Gane with no resistance just tapped. Like I mean, it's just weird. And it kind of like just like I don't know for a little while I was like, man, it's UFC like they're rigging, or like was it was it predetermined? Did they pay him off? I don't know, like just some fights like it'd be like that, bro. Like it really does. Sometimes, and some of the judging is questionable. If you rig it just a little bit, make a lot of money. Anyway, yeah, it was a little odd. Some people shit on my opinion there, but I don't know. I think it's like valid to question some things sometimes. Uh, what we can take from that fight, though, Gane's grappling needs work. If it was legitimate. uh, yeah, yeah. I'm not gonna like stay on that topic way too long. Anyway, his fight prior to that was against Tai Tuivasa. He looked magnificent, or should I say magnifique, bro? I'm fucking hilarious, man. I got like funnier as I was writing this. Anyway, he stayed at range, took a couple punches, but he uses kickboxing extraordinarily well. He hurt Tai with body kicks, and over time they accumulated, which caused him to get dropped and TKO'd. Then, in his other fight prior to that one, he lost to Francis Ngannou. These were his only two fights, but I go over the last three fights. Sorry, only two fights he lost, but yeah, I go over the last three, like regardless of the outcomes normally. Um, and then if they won their last three, then I'll probably throw an extra one in where they lost, so I can kind of like talk about their weakness. Uh, yeah, because it's important. Like you don't want to just like look at the fights where they won. Yeah, because you want to be able to see like how people beat them. Um, yeah, so yeah, he TKO'd Tai Tuivasa. It looked like that was a fun fight to watch, man. It was pretty fun. Gane got hit a couple times, but yeah, I mean, it was a good victory. I mean, I enjoyed watching that one. Then his other fight, yeah. Wait, I already talked about Ngannou. Here we go. All right, so Ngannou 17-3. It was a weird fight. So Gane was piecing him up the first two rounds, and then Ngannou was supposed to be an incredible striker and not really know much about grappling, or I don't know. He just never implemented it before. But yeah, he turned into an Olympic wrestler and started slamming Gane with massive takedowns. Looked insane. Dude, I was like, damn, those takedowns are nice, man. Uh, but Ngannou basically laid on Gane for the last three rounds. Ngannou won 3-2 in a unanimous decision. Let's hope he's worked on his grappling for this fight. So yeah, I mean, like, yeah, I don't know, man. Ngannou just switched to the wrestling, bro. He's just a freak athlete, I guess. All right, we got the last fighter to break down, Sergey Spivac. 16-3. 28. He is 5 years younger, huh? That being said, we've got Spivac. He's an excellent judo specialist. Is really like great. Like he's awesome. Like I like watching that shit, bro. Like I don't know. Throws always impress me. Like I was never really a throw guy because like if you it's pretty easy to defend throws if you're not like great at them. All you really have to do is sink your hips and not drive into them. A lot of throws are used like with your momentum. So if you push into somebody, they tend to like use your push into the throw because and then like you look crazy because you're like I don't know, you have like this insane strength because you're like throwing them over, but it's really just like them like you're just moving a little bit. Anyway, yeah, I like watching it, man. Like I never did it just because like a lot of those upper body ties, like when you get those upper body ties, they're like 50-50 positions. I'd way rather be in on a leg when I'm wrestling at least. But I could see how people would implement upper body ties like when they're doing MMA because shooting for a leg like leaves you susceptible to eating a knee or yeah, like if you get caught on a leg in wrestling, like you don't have to worry about somebody going boom, 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 and punching the shit out of you. Like in MMA, you do. So if you don't finish your takedown quick, sorry, my shoulder just like popped. If you don't finish your takedown quick, then yeah, you're gonna get pieced the fuck up. All right, after that huge tangent, he fought Derek Lewis right before. I love Derek Lewis. Honestly, I didn't like him at first, but dude is mad funny. And I was kind of pissed because I bet against him in his last fight against like Marco Rogero de Lima. And he just comes out and flying knees him in the fucking face and knocks him out in 5 seconds. And I'm just like, God damn it, dude. Anyway, shit happens. Definitely lost that bet. I've been doing pretty well the last few weeks. Okay. Derek Lewis. He's now 27-11. Took down Derek Lewis with ease and submitted him with an arm triangle in the first round. Derek Lewis claimed to be sick or something, but I'm not sure how legitimate that is. Derek Lewis is a fluky type of guy. He's a fluky win type of guy. He'll be losing the fuck out of a fight and just like randomly knock somebody out. Like, like he's like he just gets tired of losing. He's like, all right, fuck, punch, like done. It's crazy, dude. Yeah, never really seen anybody fight like that before. Okay, moving on. Augusto Sakai. I was just like admiring my beard, to be honest. I was like, look at that shit. Anyway, let's talk about his fight. Yeah. Let's talk about his fight. Why am I like stuck here, bro? All right, let's talk about his fight with Augusto Sakai, 16, who is 16-5 now. Sakai started off nicely in the UFC with 4 straight wins, and then subsequently accrues 4 straight losses by KO every time, which is like pretty fucking crazy, dude. Can't imagine. He did come back recently and win against Dontel Mays, but I'm not sure how much weight that holds at each point in their careers. That being said, it's hard to gauge how good Sakai actually is or was when Spivac beat him. Nonetheless, Spivac pretty much ragdolled Sakai with judo. Spivac took him down over and over, then bloodied him up badly with some strikes, and the fight got stopped. It's important, in my very important opinion. This was an early stoppage. But on the other hand, there's no way Sakai was getting back in the fight, so maybe just saved him a few brain cells. But he was definitely not even close to being unconscious. I don't know. I mean, I'm not a ref, so I don't really understand. Like, sometimes they have to be dead, like on the mat, and other times it's like, he's losing pretty bad. Let's stop it. I don't know. I'm not a ref. I'll touch briefly on his fight with Greg Hardy, who is 7-5. Greg Hardy's first professional fight was in the Dana White Contender Series, which is really odd in my opinion. The UFC is seriously thirsty for some heavyweights. Like, bro, I'm thinking about fucking going and fighting. I mean, I'm 230, but I'm 0-0. Give me a fight. I'll do fucking Contender Series. Come on. I'm just kidding. You couldn't pay me enough to do that shit. I'll sit in my office and do this shit and get fat. What am I doing, bro? Like, I'm supposed to be doing a breakdown. Okay. Hardy is a hit or miss guy and 0-3 in his last 3 fights dating back to 2020. I doubt the UFC brings him in again. In the fight, Hardy looked better than Spivac on the feet when they were striking, but Spivac goes to all reliable his judo and beats his face in while on top, and then the fight got stopped. The end of the fight was pretty weird too. I just like noticed he never looked unconscious, like Hardy never did, and like the camera panned away, and then when it like panned back to him, it showed like the doctor like waking him up, and like he goes like as if he was like waking out of like him being like KO'd. Like either like okay, there's like a couple things. So either he was like faking that he was like fully knocked out for the camera to like I don't know show he didn't give up or something. I don't know, or he I don't know, was acting, and I don't know, man, just weird, bro. I guess I mean like my boy told me like you can be out like and still covering up, or like I mean sometimes in boxing people get knocked out and they're still on their feet. So I don't know, but it didn't look like he was unconscious at any point to me. Regardless, I mean, like it was a good stoppage. Like Spivac was fucking him up, and he was just covering up. Um, yeah. So that's Spivac, and a totally long tangent that was completely unnecessary. For Spivac, basically great grappler. Yeah, good at judo. Conclusion. I am not married to either guy here. Well, I hope I'm not married to either guy. But seriously, this fight, dude, like, what is wrong with me? This fight could go either way. If Spivak gets takedowns and Gane hasn't worked on his grappling, Gane is fucked. And could get put away by a submission or a KO. But there's no way Gane was only training to strike for this matchup, right? I assume not. I assume Gane, big as fuck, muscular as fuck, can fend off Spivak. Not get into bad positions to get tossed over, do what I said, lower your hips, so you can't use your momentum for a throw, just basic wrestling stuff. It would suck for him to get tossed around in France in front of his own people. Anyway, it's all theoretical. Theoretical. Um, I think the lines are about right. Maybe they should tighten just a tad, in my opinion. Like Spivak, I don't know, man. Like, yeah, he could get a hold of him. I mean, yeah, it's hard to judge. Gunn only lost to John Jones and Ngannou. I mean, Spivak would have lost to both of them. No doubt in my mind. Doing MMA math, Gunn is ranked higher and has beat tougher people. He should win. But we all know that's not the case. It's not how it works, like, all the time. But this matchup's pretty fucking bad for Gunn. I don't want to make a pick. But now that I've written all this out, I'm actually leaning Spivak to win. Ugh, yeah, I don't know, man. I don't want to give I don't want to give you guys a pick. Yeah, you make your own conclusions. Just hammer Zetamir and Morgan and go me. uh, okay, and then yeah, it'll be a good fight, man. I'm cheering for Gon. Honestly, I think Gon will probably win, dude. He's a big boy. He's gotta have trained grappling, bro. Like what else you're gonna train for striking like against Spivak when you know he's not good on his feet? No, he's training takedown defense. I hope to God he's training takedown defense. For his sake, dude. Like, I mean, it's not my life. Like, I don't care. But I do have gone in a lot of parlays. Yeah, and yeah, I mean, I'm rooting for him. Anyway, bets would be Gone by decision, Spivak submission. Both are good bets. Yeah, this is it for me, boys. I spent way too long. Next time, I'm probably gonna trim it down. Definitely not gonna use a Word document. And I'm probably not gonna read verbatim, like word for word, what I wrote. I'll probably make like little note cards or bullet points or something, and put up some graphics. But there were so many changes. It was hard, man. It was hard to get this out. But I think I did a pretty good job. Let me know in the comments. Peace out.